Saeed Khan joins us now from Detroit. He's a lecturer in the Department of Near East and Asian Studies at Wayne State University in Detroit. So sad to see these children, the victims in so much of this war. What's your takeaway from this?
Well, I think what it demonstrates, Mike, is that neither side is really too interested in the civilian casualties and the misery that is being poured on them. And along with the two factions in Syria, it also seems to be a very waning concern for some of the other external, regional, and international actors as well. This seems to be more about politics. This seems to be more about various proxy wars that are being waged, while at the same time now we're dealing with going into the 8th year of this crisis in Syria.
Let's talk a little bit about the U.S. and their approach to Syria. It seems to change on a daily basis. Over the weekend, Nikki Haley, the U.S. ambassador to the UN, out front saying the Trump administration was going to get tough on Russia for its alleged complicity in all of this in Duma. There would be new sanctions today. A Trump advisor said, no, that's not the case. Additional sanctions are under consideration. That Haley may have been momentarily confused. How confusing is the administration's foreign policy when it comes to Syria?
It is utterly incoherent. There doesn't seem to be any consensus within the administration, and so it's no surprise that there really is no coherence when it comes to the policy. But to be fair, we find that this is the second administration in a row that has had equivocation when it comes to Syria. Even the Obama administration was certainly, and perhaps justifiably, accused of playing a balancing act, not really following through on red lines. That is something that the current president has also retroactively accused President Obama of having done when it came to chemical weapons. And it seems as though that was really the impetus for the airstrikes on Saturday. It seemed as though President Trump wanted to show himself to be resolute in doing something about chemical weapons, as small of an action as it was, and according to Israel's Mossad, probably not having any major impact on either the chemical weapons arsenal or to deter Assad from acting again using them.
And that's an interesting point, because Secretary of Defense James Mattis saying he hoped that the Assad government got the message. You don't think so?
I really don't think so. I mean, part of it is that American resolve and Western resolve more broadly seems to be very tempered. After all, what happened on Saturday was an extremely limited strike on 2 chemical weapons caches and on a research and development facility. There hasn't been any move, rhetorically or otherwise, to really put pressure on Assad. And after all, he does have his own patrons and guardians, which are going to protect him both at the United Nations Security Council and perhaps even more broadly when it comes to his economic and political well-being.
What do you make of these conflicting reports? We heard reports from Syrian state TV and White Helmets that the team of international experts were able to get into Duma to do some investigating. But the State Department said the team from the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons did not enter Duma.
Well, according to the latest reports, it seems as though OPCW has entered Duma as recently as a few hours ago. This again calls into question the disinformation campaigns that both sides seem to be running. Now, it's going to be also interesting to see moving along that there's already a presumption among Western countries to say that OPCW really is not going to find much evidence of chemical weapons because the Russians and the Syrians perhaps have already tampered with the evidence. Of course, at the same time, it's very difficult, the other argument can be made, that one cannot tamper with something that was never there in the first place. So these are the conflicting narratives.
Yeah, let me ask one final question. A lot of analysts feel that Assad has the upper hand. He's winning this war. So the question is, how different will Syria look post-war versus pre-war?
Well, first of all, that assumes that there is going to be an end to this conflict. And right now, it doesn't seem as though there is going to be one in sight. If it is seen to be that Assad has ultimate victory, then he still has to deal with a country which has been torn apart. As your previous clip said, we have over 6 million children, and even more than that, people who are displaced. We have close to 350,000 people are dead. Building of trust is going to be as critical as the rebuilding of infrastructure, and there doesn't really seem to be much of that on the prospective horizon.
Yeah, both will be very difficult. Saeed Khan, thanks so much for joining us from Detroit.